Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, creators of some of the most beautiful, dependable, and innovative espresso machines on the planet. They've been doing that since 1927, hand-built in Florence, Italy. La Marzocco is just a household name in coffee, and it's at the heart of some of the world's best coffee bars globally for a reason. I've always loved working on La Marzocco espresso machines, and I know you will as well. Check them out at lamarzocco.usa.com to see what they have to offer. Machines like the very ergonomic KB90 espresso machine, or the classic and technologically efficient Linea PB, which is one of my personal favorites, and many, many more that they have to choose from to suit your coffee shop needs. Go ahead and email info@lamarzocco.usa.com, and one of their salespeople will help you choose the right equipment for your store. And I really recommend La Marzocco to anybody looking for great espresso machines for their coffee bar. Again, check them out, lamarzocco.usa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who creates custom-branded mobile apps for coffee shops who want to stand out, who want to offer their customer a seamless technological experience. This convenience of mobile ordering plus hospitality equals a real game changer for those of you who are interested in mobile apps for your coffee bar. You're not just one coffee shop among many on an app with Espressly. The app is yours. It's got your logo, it's got your colors and feel, language. It's wonderful. And with Espressly, it's a no-risk model, no setup or development fees, and it integrates fully with Square, which allows you to also utilize loyalty in the app itself, which is wonderful for customers because they can build points within the app and use them in your cafe to drive more traffic. There's a lot to love here, and Espressly loves coffee shops, and it shows in what they do with their products. So go visit them at espressly.co to have them get started on your app today. That's over at espressly.co. Okay, everyone. Well, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about coffee shop design. And specifically, I'm thinking about the presentations that I'm going to be giving to people when I go to Coffee Fest. And one of the presentations I give is on bar design principles. Now, I'm not an architect. Okay. Surprise. I'm a coffee guy, and I've been around a ton of different coffee shops, and I've worked in many, many coffee shops over my time as well. And not all bars are built equally. A lot of the times what we end up with are bars that are built based on the aesthetics that the owners want for the bar, but the functionality is just not there. One of the classic pieces of advice I give people, of course, is start with your menu and figure out what is the purpose of this bar. I mean, really, people come to you to buy coffee. They want you to be a coffee person. This coffee place creates this menu that they order from, and that menu has to be the centerpiece of how you lay out the bar and all of the equipment and all of the different things that come with the equipment, the supporting items. It goes into the planning process before you break ground, before you make big purchases. You got to know who you are. You got to know what you're going to serve. That doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. When it comes to menu planning, you definitely want to have certain categories established that can grow incrementally over the years. But you can figure out quite a lot about what you are going to serve your customers before you build your bar. That'll save you a lot of heartache because there are tons of coffee bars out there who are either super cluttered because they didn't anticipate all of the tools they would need for the things that they assumed they wanted on their menu, but they didn't build the bar to house those things, or they're way too big, and it's really a chore to actually traverse the many, many steps across the bar to grab this tool or that tool or deliver a drink and all of that. So you got to plan your space with respect to what your menu is, because without that, you're just building blindly. You don't know how it's going to work out until you actually start working the bar. And by then it's too late. One of the worst things that can happen is you don't consider the unique nature of a coffee bar, and you plug and play templates of build outs from things that don't represent your menu. They don't represent your industry. I've had people where we were talking about doing consulting, and then they said they wanted to use like an all in one stop. This place works with offices and restaurants and cafes and bars, and they're going to lay out our coffee shop for us. But half of the time we spent in consulting afterwards was undoing a lot of the decisions that were made by people who are well meaning, but because it's kind of like a layout and design factory, kind of like churning out real vanilla boilerplate designs, it won't be optimized. And I think that's really where we want to create optimization, is right in the beginning before everything is set in stone. It's that whole measure twice, cut once philosophy. And with your cafe, the way you show care and concern for your staff is by giving them the resources to do their job well. And this is one of the first things that will show that is we forecasted what it would be like to work in this bar. We want to set you up for success. And it's not just your staff that you're setting up for success, it's also your customer. Because in a bar that is well designed, cafe staff are not as needlessly stressed. Therefore, they can focus more on the customer and the details that go into the customer experience. And you can feel it when you walk into a bar that's badly designed. People just don't want to work on that bar, and they're tired and they hurt. It literally hurt. And to a certain degree, you're going to be putting out effort when you're working. And there is a certain level of inevitable tiredness that comes with working. But we don't want to needlessly magnify those things with bad bar design. And so that's the big tip, really. Get your menu first and then decide where to put things. And one of the practical things that you can do here, I think, is to physically game plan, either in the space or in your garage on a piece of paper. When I work with clients, I use software that helps me move things around, and we go through the menu first, and then of course we look at the constraints of the space and decide how best to set this up, how to optimize for the constraints that we have. First of all being the menu, second being the space, and maybe next being the budget. We can't afford to buy certain types of equipment, which implicates how much equipment we're going to have, which means you're going to have more or less space available. But you can do this just with cutouts of piece of paper or tape put down on the floor, and you walk through the process. In fact, I really like the idea of standing in a space, and I've done this many times, where you say, here's where the bar is going to be, because here's where the drains are, and here's where the electricity already is. And you may opt to actually bring those things in. It's pretty expensive. Sometimes it requires trenching if you don't have a basement, and that's super expensive. But if you can get the bar part taped out, then you can get a bunch of cardboard box tops and a flat piece of cardboard and cut them to the size of the equipment that you need for that menu, and put them there and just move them around and go through the process of walking through what it takes to make a latte. Okay, here I am making a latte, unlocking the portafilter, I'm doing all this stuff, and then I'm handing it to the customer. And all along the way, as you mimic that step by step, you are going to be examining, is this a needless step? Or where's my grinder? Oh, we didn't think about that. Okay, actually, I think it would be better to put the grinder there. You could have somebody observing you in your motions, taking notes. This is the kind of drill and review that is going to pay dividends. It really will. You don't want to approach this without this kind of real deep thought into how things are set up in certain kinds of workflow. The best kinds of workflow, the most intuitive, are basically linear. They go from the point of order to the point of pickup, and it's intuitive. That's what we want. Usually, customers want to know where to pick the order and where to pick things up. Baristas want to have this progressive workflow from the baseline preparations of syrups and coffee grounds, which is usually on one side, that's the dirtiest side, moving to the cleanest and the most presentable. And we usually have milk pitchers over on that side, and the pickup station, and the condiment bar is kind of kitty corner to that somewhere or next to it. So you can see that flow is typical for a well-designed coffee bar. And of course, sometimes constraints will force you to make decisions that aren't ideal, But to the best of your ability, if you walk through this staging process well, you will create an efficient coffee bar. And each time you open a cafe, you go through the same process, although the second time or the third time you do it, you're going to get better at it because you've got the experience of the first one. This kind of a catch 22 where we fix the mistakes of the first cafe at the second one, and now all the baristas want to work at the second one, which just means you got to go back to the first one and maybe see what you can do to optimize that bar now that you've learned some lessons. And that's kind of the final thing I'll say here. And there's lots more we can talk about practically. If you're going to Coffee Fest, I'm giving this talk and I think it'll be helpful for you. But it's the idea that you're going to have things that you can't do, and you're going to have less than ideal situations. And one of the worst things that can just bug you, like, "Ugh, I really don't like that we couldn't do this." In order to overcome that, we need to say, hey, we did our due diligence. We did as much as we possibly could with what we had at the time, given our knowledge, given our resources, and our constraints. And now we will make a decision to celebrate who we are by living fully into where we are and how we've set things up. That doesn't mean denying that it might be troublesome to stoop where you didn't want to stoop, or to have a condiment bar where you didn't necessarily want to have a condiment bar, but you had to. It doesn't mean saying that's good, but it means that's just where things are right now. And we don't have to focus on that. We can just celebrate serving coffee and having community. And I think that looks really good. So that's the kind of aesthetic I like to see, is confidence. And you can have double the confidence knowing that you put the work in to do as best as you could. And now you're putting the work in to serve as best you can in that space. And so those are just some thoughts for you right now when it comes to designing your coffee shop and your coffee bar. Lots of resources out there to help you with other details regarding power and plumbing and practical considerations. But the philosophy that we've discussed here today, in the midst of all that practicality, can sometimes get glossed over or not be really addressed at all. And so I hope that you take this to heart as you pursue more detail. And don't forget to follow some of the links here for recommended episodes as we talk about more things related to coffee shop design in the show from past episodes. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. And I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.